Here we are, week 6 of Sports Talk on our time. My name is Jerry DiPaola. I'm a retired sports writer from the Tribune Review. My partner is Frank Verdecchia, a former copy editor, ace copy editor at the Tribune Review. And we got a lot of opinions on sports, so we're going to keep them up today. We're going to have some Steeler talk, some pit talk, and maybe even talk about your Pirates, Frank, who's won 5 out of 6. But Steelers first, Frank, and I'll throw it to you. Give me your opinion on what you think's been going on for the first 4 days, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
Well, right now, the first 4 days, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. When you put the pads on, that's when we'll find out who's for real and who's not. But so far, what we're saying is the offensive line took a big blow. The defensive line's supposed to be looking really well, and it looks like Peyton Wilson's going to be a mainstay at that middle linebacker position. So right now it's a lot tossed up in the air until tomorrow they decide to start putting the pads on and hitting each other. So what do you think, Jerry? What do
Well,
you think?
I have a couple of thoughts, actually 3 thoughts about the Steelers at this point in training camp. Number one thought, most important thought, I'm glad I'm not there. I spent 11 years covering the Steelers, and
Yeah.
I didn't really mind living in the dorms that much, but it's kind of nice to sit back and watch these other guys sweat in the hot August sun out there in St. Vincent College. But my main thought is I was thinking about Aaron Rodgers. He said and done all the right things. At practice, he threw an interception on his first throw of practice the other day. But I'm not worried too much about that because, like you said, there's football in shorts. Really can't tell anything physically about what they're doing. But he said and done all the right things. When somebody asked him about the criticism that Terry Bradshaw leveled against him this summer, he took the high road and said he'd like to sit down and chew some bark with Bradshaw. Try to become friends with him somehow. Um, but it doesn't make it just because he's been a good guy and a good teammate, which he has been, which is great and admirable, doesn't mean he's going to be a great quarterback for the Steelers. I thought that at the point where they signed him, he was the best guy for the job. When Justin Fields didn't want to come back because the Steelers kept bouncing him around last year and played Russell Wilson over him, I think that he was hurt by that, and he ended up signing for the Jets probably for more money than the Steelers were willing to offer. And by the time you got into the springtime and the summertime, Aaron Rodgers was the best option because they really didn't want Russell Wilson
Yeah.
anymore. And I think that
Well,
Rodgers is the best guy for the job
and
at this point.
you can't beat the price either. I mean, the price is cheaper than what Justin Fields would have cost. And
Right.
people, when I think about Justin Fields, I think of a guy who wasn't worth that money. He's heading into his 5th year. He was the 11th overall pick. He got his chance to play last year, and it was still written and reported and said that they couldn't use all of Arthur Smith's offense because they didn't trust that he could run it all. Now you're the 11th overall pick from 2021, and you're still not, you can't run an entire offense. What you got to be now. It's now. If you haven't done it by now, then I wouldn't be expecting Justin Fields to be much of anything.
But the Steelers would have signed him if he accepted their
Yeah.
deal. Yeah,
Yes.
but he didn't want to come
Yeah.
back to Pittsburgh for 2 reasons: probably money and the way Tomlin treated them last year.
Yeah, that's true too. But I mean, Rodgers now. I mean, like I said, I would have gone. The path I would have gone. I've said it over and over. But now that they're all in, you can't beat the price for Rodgers. And like he says that in camp he tries to throw the ball. He tries to make passes just to see if he can do it. And that's ball gets picked here or there that everyone he throws his first pass and it was intercepted and it's the story of the day because what else is there without putting pads on and actually hitting each other to see who's the real deals and so forth.
But I think he's going to be the best best Steeler quarterback since Ben.
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe even better than Ben in his last season. If he
Oh
stays
yeah.
healthy, which brings me to my third point. About the training camp, Broderick Jones, left tackle. He'll be protecting Aaron Rodgers' blind side. He's moving from right tackle to left tackle. People think he's going to be a better left tackle than a right tackle, where he really struggled last season. A high draft pick a few years ago, really hasn't proven his worth yet, and now he's hurt. And if he can't protect Aaron Rodgers, they sure got big problems. And I was reading the other day where he was displaying a slow get off, and when a left tackle has a slow get off, and the right defensive end and the other team has a quick get off, that's going to be problems, for Rodgers and any quarterback, and even in the run game. So And there's no depth on the Steelers' offensive
And
line, so they got problems. If Broderick Jones, number one, is still injured, and number two, if he doesn't get any better.
yeah, I don't get that either. Like I said before, like his first season, he looked like he was going to be a guy here for a decade. But I mean, year three, and he's having problems being slow, and he also lost 20 pounds. Remember that, and he's moved to the position he's set to play. That was his position in college, so he's more of a left tackle than a right tackle. But I also did some reading too, and say he is terrible. Faltano played a lot of left tackle. He's had a lot
Right.
of reps, so he could always go there too. And we really don't know how good he is yet either. But they said it was written last year and reported that he was maybe their best offensive lineman before he got injured.
Well,
But
what's concerning, Frank, is that the guy Jones lost 20 pounds, and he still has a slow get off.
yeah,
When you lose
so
20 pounds, you should be quicker on your feet, more nimble.
that's
And he's
it.
supposed to
And
be a great athlete.
does that mean he's hit his ceiling and that's it? We all have a ceiling, Jerry, and maybe his head's bouncing off it right now, and he's not. He's really
Well,
not.
and that would be another first round
Oh,
draft pick bust. For the Steelers
oh,
coming right
without a
after the
doubt.
Kenny Pickett bust, and
Without
that
a
wouldn't
doubt.
be
You're
good.
gonna trust Calvin Anderson to be the guy
I
to,
don't even know who
protect.
Calvin Anderson is.
I looked him up today. He played for I think three other teams, and he's been in the league at least 5 or 6 years, if not longer. And he's right now the second guy behind him, at least from research I've done. And
Maybe they'll move Fertano back to left tackle, and
that's a
maybe Anderson to
possibility.
right tackle, or maybe they'll go into the waiver wire and
Yeah.
try to find somebody who
Well,
gets cut by
yeah.
the end of
That,
August. And
well,
here
here's
it's also just July too. It's July
yes.
28th. Still got another week and a half before the first
Yeah.
preseason game. So Jones has a chance, number one, to get better, number two, to heal the injury.
Yeah.
But at this point in training camp, it's really hard to tell. Tomorrow they put on the pads, and then we'll start seeing who can play football and who can't. But that just the beginning too. There's a lot of football, a
Yeah.
lot of practices yet to be conducted out there at St. Vincent College.
Well, another guy, Caleb Johnson's another guy I want to see. Watching him at Iowa, they had a really good offensive line at Iowa because he hit through holes that were the size of roadways, and he hit those things quickly. And even in the other video I watched of him is he gets through little cracks, gone. It's
Right.
not he has that speed, he's got that strength, he's got Najee Harris just didn't have it. And one of the things I didn't like about Najee either, he gained weight when he got here. I'm not saying he didn't get fat, but he put more mass on him, muscle, and it slowed him down a little bit,
I
and
think you're right. Yeah,
it
he never
slowed
had
him.
any long runs.
No, he did not, and he had a hard time finding. There'd be a hole to the right, and he's moving to the left and running into linemen instead of just getting that extra yard. I think with Caleb Johnson, they might not have those issues on third and short, fourth and inches. You might not have to think twice about doing it. And Najee, I thought he was a mistake to take in the first round because running backs are easy to find, and offensive line has a lot to do with it. But I also think people fall in love with that crimson and white whenever when Nick Saban was there. You get mesmerized by those
That's true.
Alabama. He's running over future attorneys from Vanderbilt and jumping over future doctors, and all of a sudden he's going to be the greatest running back ever.
Well, they
But
drafted him in the first round, and that's
yeah,
sometimes that's a mistake. And they got Caleb Johnson in the third round, and Jalen
yeah,
Warren is a free
yeah.
agent. Was a free agent, wasn't even drafted. But I think from what I've seen from Johnson, like you said, watching him in Iowa and some of the video, he's going to be a better running back than both of those two guys, both Harris and Warren. He's a big tough guy who comes from the Big Ten, where running the ball is a priority. It's going to take a while. He's not going to be a star right off the bat. But I think by the end of the season, maybe by mid-season or even before that, he's going to be their starting running back, I
Oh, I
think.
agree. He looks like a guy that falls forward. Najee always seemed like he fell backward. So I mean, if you fall forward, you're much that you're winning the battle right there. And like I said, Najee Harris would hit somebody's ankles and fall back a yard. So, but that's another guy I like to look for. And as far as Rodgers went too, another thing was saying about the quick release he has. He has a release that's similar to Dan Marino's almost as far as how fast he can get rid of the ball.
Right.
And Ben didn't have that. And I'm not saying that's going to be what makes him, a better quarterback, but it's still something that's,
Well,
different.
he's going to need a quick release if they can't protect him. And
Yeah,
you're going to see him trying to get rid of the ball quickly in those short little dink and dunk passes that everybody
yeah,
hated. The last couple of years with these other quarterbacks. I mean, the Steelers have not been very good at identifying quarterbacks since Ben retired.
No.
And since they really Tomlin never has, because he never had to worry about it when we had Ben all those years. So if Rodgers is not the answer, then you got to go to Mason Rudolph, and I think they'll give Rodgers a whole lot of runway to make sure he can get the job
Yeah.
done. But again, you got to keep him healthy, and you
Yeah.
got to give him a chance to throw that deep ball, because that's what he's good at. And if he can't throw the deep ball, I think the offense is just going to stagnate again.
Yeah, and 41 years old. Like I said, it's you get hit 41 years old. It's not like getting hit at 28. You could get injured real quickly. So, like you said, I mean, that offensive line.
He played 17 games last year. I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah,
He played fairly well.
played
He
one
was
the
as good as
previous year.
he was good as Russell Wilson maybe it was last year, but he has to
Yeah.
be better. The Steelers need him to be better.
Yes, they do. If yeah, he's the key. He's the key. I think that you know. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him. What's he gonna play?
Always
You
is.
think maybe one series he plays week one, first preseason game, and that's it, and then they just be like, okay, we know what this guy can do.
Right.
Yeah.
You think it's that time we start talking about pit football?
Oh, it's definitely that time, Jerry.
That's your second favorite topic, right? They go to training
That's
camp
right.
on Wednesday. How about that?
Oh, this is a big year for Narduzzi. I mean, he's got I'd like to see him win at least 7 games and not lose, not do like he did last year and lose 6 in a row. But 7 or 8 wins that's got to be Conlon
Well,
says the standard. We're talking about Pitt. There's a different standard at Pitt, and the
seven
closer we
won't
get
do
to
it.
what
In the
7.
eyes of the fans, 7 won't do it. I mean, they won
No,
7 last year, and they ended up 7-6. If you end up 7-6,
yeah,
that's what they did under Todd Graham and Paul
yeah,
Chryst. You need to step forward. And Narduzzi did step forward with an ACC championship, but lately he hasn't been. And there's some concerning things, going into the into Pitt training camp that I wanted to discuss today.
yeah,
And one of the things I think is Eli Holstein. I mean, he was injured, and he was injured in spring ball, and he threw 2 interceptions in the spring game. But he really has to step up and have a great season.
yeah,
Any football team's season hinges on the quarterback, and it's same thing with Holstein.
yeah.
If he can't get any better than he was, late in the season, and he has to play better than he did in the spring, they're going to have big problems.
It's the
Now,
most
the thing
important
about
position. Most
go ahead,
important
I'm sorry.
position on the field. I mean, unless you have a defense that rivals like the Steel Curtain or the Bears or the Ravens back when they want to see, unless you have a defense like that, you can't. You need a quarterback. A bad quarterback, you can get away with an average to below average quarterback if your defense is just generational. And Pitt's
Well,
defense will not be generational.
no, it was very mediocre last year, even though they had, Kyle Lewis, making All-American
Yeah,
type plays and machine Bowles. But I think they're really high on Lovelace, and they're high on Bowles, of
yeah,
course, and Lewis. And they have some linebackers that can make plays. But they really didn't much of a pass rush from their 4 down linemen last year. So they went into the transfer portal, and a guy that I think you want to watch this season, and a lot of people have high hopes for, is Jaden Moore, defensive end from Oregon, transfer from Oregon, who I think needs to provide that kind of pass rush that they used to get, from people like Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones. They
yeah.
haven't really gotten lately. And if you're down, 4 down linemen can create a pass rush and at least put pressure, on the quarterback. You're the other guys on the defense, 7 other guys on the defense can be creative and do some things in the back end that can confuse the quarterback. And
Well,
so I think it all starts with those 4 guys up front. If they can get that done, that's going to be a big boost.
It's also important too because Narduzzi puts those corners on an island, and
That's what I'm
it
talking
seems like
about. Yeah.
his philosophy is to play that man coverage and then hope that you can stop the run or get to the quarterback quickly enough. And when they don't, I mean that's putting a lot of pressure on a kid there to play man coverage that much and not get any help. So
One
that's
cornerback to watch this year is Shadarian Harrison. I think he's a
okay.
redshirt junior, who's actually he was named by the coaches this last spring the most improved defensive player in spring ball, and he's a guy that was highly recruited, hasn't played much at all, in his first couple of years at Pitt, and now he has a chance to start at cornerback because they really need cornerbacks right now. Ryland Gandy transferred to Indiana, and they still got Battle and they still got Lynham, who to my way of thinking are good players, but not great players. Harrison, we don't know what's going to come from him. They're high on him, but can he be the kind of a shutdown
Yeah.
corner, at least in a slot, that the great defenses need? And right now, I think cornerback, could be a weakness on this team. And with the way Narduzzi plays the defense, put these guys in one-on-one islands could be a problem.
No, that's going to definitely be a problem. Battle, I think I like Battle because he's big. He's kind of built like Joey Porter Jr. But last year he struggled at first. Last year, I can remember those games against Cincinnati and West Virginia, and you're out there on that island the whole time, and he was giving up some big plays. But I thought he turned his season around pretty well, and he started playing better man coverage. But because of, I think, his size, he's got the long arms. I think he's 6'3", 200 pounds. And it's his last season, I believe, at Pitt. So that's
Yeah.
another guy that they're going to have to rely on. But if you don't get to the quarterback, then Narduzzi's defense is going to be toast in the pass game.
Yeah, the pass rush really helps the pass defense in the secondary, and vice versa. If the guys play good coverage in the secondary, they have more time to get to the quarterback. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Narduzzi, insists on playing that press coverage with the cornerbacks, and it does. With the cornerbacks, you have to come up and hit the guy coming off the line of scrimmage, and if they miss them, they're in big trouble. They do have some guys at safety. I think Cruz Brooklyn's a kid from Steel Valley is going to be a good player for Pitt this coming season. Javon McIntyre, is a veteran guy back there who's played a long time at Pitt. He was their safety back in 2022 when he had the big game against UCLA in the Sun Bowl. That was that's got 4 seasons ago. So, they do have some players in that defense.
And
But,
they got talent
again,
on offense too. They got talent on offense. Reed is a legitimate Division I, power 4 running back. He's if he can keep himself healthy,
right.
he falls forward as well. He gets through those holes. He catches the ball. He's
And he
fantastic
plays hard
receiver
too.
out of
He's
the
a
back.
tough kid. He
Plays
doesn't
hard.
mind,
He's 170 pounds and plays banged up. That's another
right.
one. I mean, Kenny Johnson at receiver. There's another receiver. I can't remember everybody's name. I know I usually do, but the one he's from Western Carolina, who's another Cade Bell guy that came over from Western Carolina, who's talented, and the offensive line should be better this year. So I mean, it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna come down to that pass rush, and Narduzzi, if he can keep his head straight on game days, I'll feel better. He does things sometimes that just make you want to shake your head.
Well, now he has to reveal injuries. How about that? The
After
ACC
me,
is
it's called the
the
Jerry DiPaola rule.
I know the ACC said you got to announce your injuries on 2 days before the game, and I think two other times before kickoff. So I'm sure he can't be too happy about that. But still, if I was there, I'd still ask the question on Monday, even though he doesn't have to answer until Thursday. I would still give him a hard time and say, "Come on, Pat, help me out here," But
Irritate him.
he would roll his eyes and look at me and say, "Jerry, you know better than that." But now I can ask the injuries, but I can't ask until Thursday.
That's right. And then Jerry, I know another one of your favorite things was always, what is that, Maxwell Award winners. Yeah, I know you always or nominees or on the list. I know you probably loved for chasing that down and writing something up for that. So now you don't have to do that anymore either.
Holstein and Kyle Lewis are on the Maxwell watch list, right?
Yes, the watch
and
list.
And I think the only people who aren't on that watch list are you and I.
That's basically it. Yes, it's kind of like OTAs, Jerry. No one has a bad OTA. It's kind of like when you're on a watch list. It's sort of like when they say, "Boy, I tell you, Jerry DiPaola hit that sled hard at that OTA, man. He's going to be great."
Well, hitting the sled is different than hitting a human being, and that's what
That's right.
that's the problem.
That's right.
If you're either Pitt or the Steelers, if your defense can't hit those human beings and knock them down, there's going to be a problem.
Well,
And
let me
go ahead. I'm sorry. We'll
let
see.
me ask you let me ask you one more quick thing about the Pirates, Jerry. You say that
Oh yeah.
Mitch Keller's pitching tonight, and the trade deadline's coming up, and that doesn't. You think they're going to trade Mitch Keller, and what could they get for him?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they traded Mitch Keller, but I'm afraid that they're not going to get anything for him. With a bat that can help you right now in 2026. Yeah. Because if you're a contender, and let's say you want to trade for Mitch Keller or a pitcher or David Bednar, do you want to give up one of your best bats and make your offense weaker to make your pitching staff better? I think the best. You don't want to trade Keller or Bednar and get some double-A prospect, some 19-year-old kid right out of high school that everybody says is going to be a great player. I mean, you never know about those guys. They need help immediately with guys who can step into the lineup now and next season and can be either a strong right fielder or a strong left fielder or first baseman or a DH. and McCutchen can't play forever. But if you're going to just trade him for prospects, I say keep him for the rest of the season. It's interesting they're letting him pitch tonight. Because if they're going to trade a guy, you'd think they wouldn't pitch him
Oh,
because
maybe
you could
that's the
get
plan.
hurt, and there
You
goes
could
your
probably
trade.
you could probably get more in the offseason. I was looking back. They traded McCutchen in the offseason. They got Brian Reynolds. They traded
Right.
Garrett Cole in the offseason. They got Joe Musgrove, who didn't really do much for the Pirates, but he's a talent. He was a talented pitcher that
He's
just
making a
was
lot of money for the Padres. Yeah.
playing on poor teams. But yeah, in the offseason, you are going to get better. You're going to get a better shake if you wait to the offseason than you do now. And teams don't. It's just changed so much. It changed so much in the '80s when they were building that team. They were able to trade people at the deadline and get pieces like Bobby Bonilla and players like that, and you just don't get that. I think they got Doug Dre back and with a trade during the season,
Well,
and you know,
I agree with you. And I think this season, of course, is gone. I mean, nobody's
yes,
concerned about this season, but it looks like it's going to be another losing season. For them not to have a losing season, Frank, they have 56 games left. They have to win 37 of them. They have 44 wins right now. And if they get 37 more wins, that's 81. They wouldn't have that would have a non-losing season, but they haven't had a winning season since 2018, and I don't see them winning 37 out of 56.
and
That's
you can't pitch Paul Skeens every night. Yeah,
that's 660 winning percentage. I don't see them
yeah,
getting that.
no, it's
It's
not happening.
more likely that they lose 38 out of 56 and they get another 100
Yeah,
loss season, which would be the
yeah,
third in 5 seasons. They played better over the weekend. They won 5 out of 6. Um, Remember, they had a 6-game winning streak, earlier this summer, and they got nothing out of it. Uh,
they tease you. That's all. They
I
just
enjoy
tease
watching
you.
the games, but you can't
Yeah.
expect them to give you much excitement these days. Even though they play a lot of close games, they still end up
Yeah,
losing
I mean,
most of
it's
them.
a difference with baseball too. When you're playing every day, you're going to catch maybe some fire for maybe a week or something, and that's what they've done on a couple occasions. But overall, over the grand scheme of things, they're just an awful baseball team. And
Well, and people talking about, you got to trade Keller, you got to trade Bednar. Well, yeah, I guess maybe you
for
do, but
Brian
they're
Hayes,
good players. And what one thing that makes a bad team, Frank? It's the lack of good players. So
right?
what are you going to do? You're going to trade your maybe your two best pitchers, Bednar and Keller, unless you're going to get a guy who's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs for those guys and hit close to 280 or 290. I say keep them. Wait till the offseason and make a trade.
Yeah,
Make a trade then.
that sounds like a good idea. Maybe you should replace Charrington then, Jerry, in
Well,
the
I think somebody will, especially if they end up
offseason.
approaching 100 losses
It's
again.
that's probably going to be the case. But well, Jerry, it's about time to wrap things up today.
Yeah, it's almost
So
time for dinner. We
yeah,
got we got a ribeye, and since we're making so much money on these podcasts, Frank, I can afford to get a ribeye for dinner every once in a while.
you wait another month, you get a lobster tail with that too, and you can
Did you
broil
get
that
your
up.
check yet from the first 5
Not yet. I'm
podcasts?
still waiting. I'm still
All right,
waiting. It's
all right. Well,
from
keep going to your mailbox every day. It'll be there eventually.
apparently Alan Green's got it for me. He's taking people on journeys, and I'm gonna get I'm gonna get a piece of that pie there at Pitt because they're taking graduates from 1993 and they're gonna give them money as well as long as the 2016. So
Well,
that's
you've sweat enough about Pitt football and Pitt basketball than any player, at least as much as any player. So
that's right.
you deserve a little bit, and you're a loyal fan. You got the tickets in the end zone
That's right.
seats at Peterson Event Center for basketball, which I'm looking forward to this season.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
That's right.
it's going to be an interesting season for Pitt football and basketball, but it's also a pivotal season. They better win,
Yep.
and the
Yep.
Steelers the
Big
same
season.
thing. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game since forever. So everybody, they may not feel the pressure or admit to the pressure, but the fans are going to put pressure on them if they start season on a losing streak.
Yep. Going to be an interesting few months coming up for sure.
Okay, Frank, are we done?
We're done, Jerry. All
Anything
right. I'll
else on your
talk.
mind?
I think we've covered everything today.
I think so. Next week we'll see what happens when they put on the pads at Steeler training camp, and
That's right.
Pitt has a practice coming up starting Wednesday, so there'll be more to talk about. And I guess there's a preseason game next week too, right? At the end of the week.
I think so. Yeah. So
That's
we'll
right.
get to see Rogers then. We'll see what
All
they
right.
got. All right,
All
Jerry.
right.
Take care.
All right, Frank.
See ya.
See you next time.